All right, we're live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Truth Talks. Truth Talks, welcome. I know it has been a while, but guess what? I'm back. We're back, and we're so glad to be here to you with you tonight. We're going to talk about a great subject, dealing on Truth Talks. We're going to be here every second Tuesday, of the month. We're going to talk about a brand new subject, but things that matter to us, that should matter to us. So I'm going to go ahead and let Coach Raw. Again, my name is Shayna Asby, Coach Shayna Lorraine Asby, which is the family life coach. And I want to let Coach Raw introduce herself and explain our mission.
Hello, I'm Coach Raya, Empowerment and Life Purpose Coach. The mission of True Talks is to provide you with the open dialogue of real life situations, helping you to overcome obstacles that can leave you feeling stuck, hindering your growth. This is an open forum, free of judgment and bias. We are here to promote healing and growth in order for you to move forward in your destiny. And today we are going to be discussing and talking about broken promises. To give an overview of some type of broken promises that can occur, there are solemn promises, there are legal contracts, there are fairy tale promises, verbal promises, shallow promises, unspoken promises, as well as over promising. All right, Coach Shana. Coach Shannon, you still there? We're ready to start our show. Right, let's hold on a moment to find out what's going on with Coach Shannon. Just bear with us a moment. All right, so we had some technical difficulties, but Coach Shannon will be back in a minute. So as I stated, we're going to be talking about broken promises and just to kind of give some, again, backstory on Truth Talks. Truth Talks came about because there's just so many issues and topics and things of that nature that we just want to discuss. It's a lot of things that go undiscussed in our communities day to day. Just kind of the whether it's the what happens in this house stays in this house type of situation, and you just don't talk about it. And a lot of times it prohibits you from healing. So you're suffering from different traumas and different things of that nature because you just let things progress and they're just not talked about. So we want to have an open forum of honest and open conversation where truth talks, where you can express your true feelings, personal experiences. Maybe it's an experience that maybe someone else that you know has went through, and you can just share them. We can grow together while discussing them. We can learn from them. We can heal from them, which is a very important thing. because a lot of times we carry things with us and we are just operating in brokenness. So we're just bandaging them up, never healing from them. But we definitely want to make this a safe haven, open space for any and everybody to come on board and discuss different topics. During our sessions, we'll definitely have an option for you to do and leave comments. So definitely interact with us. If you have something that you would like to say, feel free to post your comment. We'll share it with everyone. If there are particular subjects that you want to bring up for our future Truth Talk sessions, which happens the second Tuesday of every month, let us know. We are open to all type of dialogue and discussion. Again, we don't want anybody feeling like we're trying to downplay any situation. Every situation is something that is important. From situations from domestic violence situations, from human trafficking, from divorce, single parenting, the floor is open. The options are many. Okay. So we want to make sure that everyone's voice is heard and that we all have an opportunity to discuss areas of importance in our lives, and not just our lives, but our communities. Because again, a lot of things go unspoken, and it just, generation after generation, it just adds more turmoil to what's going on in our day-to-day life, because we're not talking about things, and not just talking about it, we're not resolving the issues at hand either. So just continue to bear with us while Coach Shannon gets her technical errors fixed, and we'll definitely go ahead and dive in. If you are watching at this time live and you have any questions, definitely put them in the chat. We can read them out loud. This is also live on Facebook. So there are Facebook viewers that are out there watching as well. So we welcome everybody who's here. Welcome back, Coach Shanna.
Hey, so I do apologize. Oh my God, technology these days. We had some technical difficulties. So I'm pretty sure you told them. Did you tell them about the different type of promises there are out there?
I did. I also talked about different things that are going on in the community and our personal lives, and that we have an open forum of not just talking about it, but having us heal from it and getting a resolution of different issues. So we had that there are no topics that we can't talk about. I mentioned domestic violence, human trafficking. I mentioned divorce, single parenting, just to name some things out there, and told them to make some suggestions in the chat as well.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So as you heard, there are many types of promises, right? And so we're doing this series this month about broken promises. Yes, last month was actually Domestic Violence Month. I have my little purple ribbon on. It looks like you got a purple flower.
This is pink. It's an orchid, pink orchid.
It's an orchid. Okay. She has an orchid on. But I just wanted to, make sure I go ahead and give a shout out to people. There's a lot of domestic violence survivors out there. And if you know somebody that's going through a domestic violence situation, make sure that you reach out and inform them to reach out and get help. Again, this is Truth Talks, and we are talking today about broken promises. So the 3 promises that we're talking about today are: 1, the verbal promise, which is the commitment. And we're talking about the unspoken promise. That's the second one. Are 1. And the third, that's okay. And the third one we're talking about is the shallow promise, right? So yes, all of those different promises. So it's like we have promise. A promise is a promise, right? It's a statement, it's a commitment that's made. But it's like we have promises within the promises. So we have sub promises to the promise, right? Okay, so let's break them all down. So the first one we're going to talk about today is verbal promise, which is that commitment. Verbal promise is defined as a declaration that one will do or refrain from doing something specified. It can be marriage vows, oaths, legal documents, legal contracts, that you statements that you make out loud. Those are verbal contracts. Now, the thing about it is that we make verbal contracts a lot of times when we say, oh yeah, I promise that I'm going to give you a call today, and you don't call. Or this is our marriage vow, to death do us part. We are here to death do us part. And then all of a sudden we got the highest divorce rates within America. So do we really take our promises seriously? And that's a conversation that we want to talk about today. So can you talk about elaborate a little bit more about some verbal promises or some things that you came in contact with or experienced with today?
Well, definitely the verbal promises, as you mentioned, the commitment to marriage or just to be in a relationship. Some of the things when you mentioned about verbal promises, it can be to your children. I promise to be there for you. I promise I'll take you to the store, and something can come up and you just don't do it. Or I promise we'll do it tomorrow. Tomorrow might never happen. You could make a promise on your job and say, I promise I'll be on time tomorrow.
And you're late.
Right. You can make a promise to yourself and say, I promise I'm gonna be a better person. I promise I'm not gonna have the attitude. So I mean, they could just be self promises that you're making to yourself verbally too.
Oh my goodness. Let me tell you. I just thought about it when I was a kid. You know, the one thing about a kid is that children don't forget anything.
Oh
And
yeah.
when you make a promise to a child, then all of a sudden it's like it's stone and they're waiting for that promise, right? So imagine like, oh, we're going to Cedar Point tomorrow, or we're going to amusement park tomorrow. I promise we're going to amusement park. Man, I promise you that kid is what? Can't sleep, looking at the clock, imagining everything that they're gonna do tomorrow when we get to the amusement park. They're
Mm-hmm.
excited. They probably heartbeat probably be pounding, and then all of a sudden tomorrow comes and we don't go.
Right.
My mother told me when I was younger, she would never tell us when we are going somewhere big because she did not want to give us that excitement. And then it didn't happen the next day.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, man, like I understand. Imagine those children who sit by and their parents are promising to come and get them the next day. And maybe they live in a single parent household and they don't show up.
Right. Right.
Can you imagine that? Like,
Yeah. That can be tough. That can be real tough. Just yeah. Especially for the child. That is different from just an adult to a child. Like you say, children, they're holding you accountable. Point blank period. So yeah. A child is really going to be affected by the promise of an adult saying that I'm going to be there. And if they're not there, it definitely leaves a void in their childhood and in their adulthood as they get older. I know for me, I can recall a time for my father would make promises like, "Oh, I'll be there," or "We can make plans to see each other on the weekend." And I'm like, "Okay, I'm so excited," and he would be a no-show. And then that just caused me to become an adult who sat there and dealt with issues and be like, "Oh, okay, of abandonment. You're not going to be available. You're just saying that you're going to be there, but you're not." All right, we see that Coach Shanna is having technical difficulties once again, but that's all right. We're going to continue. So just back to what she was saying about children and single parents in homes and a parent saying that I'm going to be there and they're not there. Um, I had an experience with my daughter and I expressed this one time on another podcast that we did where I can remember being younger and my mom worked a lot. My brothers are older. So a lot of activities and things she wasn't there for because she had to work. And it wasn't her fault, but it's just I could probably be there the next time or whatever the case may be. But it was a particular situation. My daughter, I was like, I'm going to be so-and-so. And she didn't see me until I popped up on the scene. And it was like the whole thing like, Mommy. And that thing did something to me because it's like, wow, I actually showed up. And it's the part of just showing up that made the major difference. So just making that verbal promise, it's important. And granted, sometimes situations happen and you're not able to be there as you plan to be there for your children or your family. But at least with children, try to be accountable for what you are saying to them because they remember everything. My daughter's 5 and she could tell me something I said 2 weeks ago and I'm like, I don't remember saying that. And she's like, yeah, you did because we were sitting down and you said da 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 da. And I'm like, oh, okay. So they are listening, they are watching, they are waiting to make sure that we are fulfilling those things in which we told them that we were going to do for them. I know Shanna also talked about Shallow promises. Um, in regards to the shallow promises, those are also some things that we tend to do as well. And I mean, the shallow promises are just they take hand in hand with the verbal promises. Welcome back, Coach Shanna.
Sorry. Guess what? It ain't gonna happen again this time.
So I went ahead and elaborated more on the verbal promises when it comes to parenting. So I talked about the situation with my dad and how he made promises when I was younger, and it affected me in my adulthood with dealing with abandonment. And I also brought up the situation I mentioned before about my daughter, how I showed up for her one day. She's like, "Mommy," and I was like, it just made the difference to uphold to the promise of showing up for her. It made a big deal in her life. And I was just saying that the shallow promises also go hand in hand as the verbal ones. So being at your back, you can go ahead with the shallow promises.
Yes. I want to go back to verbal promises too, because
Okay.
I want to say this. There are a lot of people that are in relationships or have made commitments with promises that they had every intention to commit to, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then something happens, something changes, whether somebody did something that broke your trust or broke that promise, that commitment, whether it's domestic violence, whether it's infidelity, whether it's hurt your heart and they promise to do something and you really, sometimes it's okay to break some of those commitments. I
Right.
just want to say that when it comes to certain things, but if you can and you don't have to break that commitment, then don't break that commitment, right? You want to hold on to that commitment because it is a promise that you made. But when it comes to certain situations, you want to get out of those situations. And I definitely say that because I was that person. I was married, married at the age of 25. I had one son and I went through a lot of situations. And I guess what? I put my all into my marriage. And I put my all into my marriage so much so that I never wanted to get a divorce. That was not my intention. But then when I kept looking at the fact that I was almost in a hospital, my health was declining. I was going through certain issues. I was stressed out, everything. I had to weigh the options. Like, yeah, I do want to stay married because I want my son to have his father in the household. But is this the right person that I was supposed to marry with that commitment? You know,
Mm-hmm.
and the reason why I bring that up is because a lot of times we put ourselves in situations with other people or relationships, or we make promises when we don't even realize that sometimes the people that we make promises to, or even ourselves, it wasn't intentional, that we
Right.
didn't have an idea who we were at the time. So
Right.
it's so important to know who you are before
Mm-hmm.
you make that promise or commitment and who that person is.
Right.
So some promises you may have to break, but it's best to try to hold on to what those promises are. I'm pretty sure you hear about this, Coach Rod, all the time. We've had parents who had parents. So that other generation, they're probably in their 70s and
Mm-hmm.
80s right now. And one of the things they used to say was, you better stay with that man.
Mm-hmm.
He might be beating on you, but you better stay with that man.
Right.
He might be cheating on you. He might have 6, 7 kids out there.
Mm-hmm.
You better stay with that man.
Mm-hmm.
Like, let's go there. That's a truth talk right there. Those are truth talks. Like, we have to learn how to hold our commitments and our promises, but yet and still, we don't want to hold on to promises that have already been broken by
Right.
other parties that's
Right.
causing you to have health restraints or
Mm-hmm.
declines. Or like, we're not saying that, but try your best to hold on to that verbal promise.
Right.
I think it was the Bible that said, what was the scripture? Do you remember, Coach Ron?
Oh, we were talking about it yesterday.
It's better not to make a
Mm-hmm.
promise.
Mm-hmm.
It talks about better not to make a promise. So, and promises are definitely important. So the next type of promise we want to talk about is the unspoken. Did you talk about the unspoken promise?
Mm-mm. I was before you had came back, I was talking about the shallow. Going into the
Okay.
shallow. You want to go to the unspoken promise? That's cool.
Yeah. Let's
Okay.
talk about this. Let's talk about this. Because people, we can say promise all day. We can talk about the verbal commitment. But
Mm-hmm.
what about the unspoken promise, right? So the unspoken promise is are expressed or understood without being directly stated, not spoken. For example, when you choose to become a parent, that's an unspoken promise. Relationships, when you're walking with someone, whether it's a friendship, when you came into that foundation of becoming friends or co-workers or in that relationship, that's an unspoken promise. Just
Mhm.
because you don't have a ring or you haven't verbally made that commitment doesn't mean that it's not an unspoken promise. You have already made the statement that we're in a relationship. So when you
Mhm.
make the statement that we're in a relationship and both of you know it, then that's what? That's an unspoken promise.
Right. That's true.
Those are things we don't have to say, oh yes, a verbal promise. I promise to no.
Mhm. That's like your prerequisite. Yes,
Right.
it is.
Right, right.
Mhm.
We have so many people I think that are in situations where they're not realizing that they've made an unspoken promise.
Yeah, that's true. And I know when you mentioned about the relationships, some of the things of the unspoken promises with relationships were, um, am I fully ready to do this? Because that's something you think in your mind. The willingness to prioritize, which is very important. Um, the will to put in the work for that person. And am I going to communicate with you? Also, am I willing to walk away? Which is what you mentioned in regards to the marriage portion. It's like, all right, I know this is not it. So yeah, sometimes it leads to that.
You or being able to love somebody so much that you know that your relationship together, you may be hindering the process. Well,
Hmm.
I you know what? I'd rather walk away than to lose this friendship. I'd rather just walk away. I remember somebody saying before that if you love it enough and it's worth and it's supposed to be, that love will return.
Right.
And beyond that, you know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
So so yeah,
That's
that
true.
unspoken promise is real. Like when you think about that, you like, wow, like can you imagine every time you come and you're walking with somebody that you're into an unspoken promise? Like if we were to think about that, we would go into different relationships or different situations with a conscious thought
Hmm.
of like, hey, if I go into this relationship, if I go into this friendship, if I go into this or becoming a mother, like there's duties, there's responsibilities, there's obligations that come with that.
Hmm.
It'll make you more self-conscious about who you're with, who you're interacting with, and becoming that parent or who you connecting with. So those things are, things that we need to take seriously, right?
True. I think we forget about that sometimes.
Yeah, I think we do. I think that we're so anxious to get to the promise that we don't realize the work that goes in the promise.
Hmm. That's
Like
true.
it doesn't work like that. You got to go through the work in order to get to the
Hmm.
promise.
Hmm.
So it takes work. So I definitely agree. Can you think of
Yeah.
any unspoken promises that you may have got yourself in where you were like, man, let me.
I think definitely when it comes to am I really fully ready to do this? That'll be my main thing. I think sometimes I could jump the gun, and that could be whether it's a relationship, that can be in a business venture. It's like, am I ready to do this? Maybe there's some things I need to reevaluate, set in order. But I just like, some people just be like, oh, just go ahead and jump in. Yeah, but sometimes you have to like, am I really fully ready for this? So those would be some. I would say that for me would be the main unspoken one.
You
Am
know
I ready
what?
for this? I forget about that.
Let's go here. Let's talk about being single. Okay, so I'm single. Are you single, Miss Coach Rod?
I'm in a situation shift.
A situationship. Okay, okay. We can take the situationship. If y'all don't know what situationship, it means it's complicated. Okay. It's complicated. So being single, when you're single and you're not in a relationship, you get so, at first it's like, oh, I want somebody, but then sometimes you sit back and you be like, you know what? I am so comfortable. You know, I ain't gotta answer to nobody where you going, what you doing, how you doing it, what you look like, what you don't look like. What you just so comfortable. But then you had those times where you're like, hey, I really desire to be in a relationship, right? So, and you know what? It comes. I believe that it really comes with growth. We have a lot of young women out here who go from relationship to relationship,
Mm-hmm.
and they're passing on pain from other relationships to
Right.
new relationships. And
Mm-hmm.
we had this conversation earlier, and I said we need to learn how to heal ourselves or heal from the broken pain that we went through their previous relationship, so we won't take that same pain into the next relationship because that new person does not deserve to embrace or have to get that same pain that you were
Right.
holding on to.
Right. And we do that a lot.
We do that a lot.
We do that a lot. And that's because a lot of, and we say this often, a lot of the traumas that we deal with, we bandage them for years and years and years. And honestly, they don't come back up until you're in a situation and you realize, dang, I didn't realize I was still dealing with that. So, as you said, if you took some time out for yourself, there would be a lot of solved problems. So, when you go into a relationship, it goes healthy the whole way through versus it just being, whew, I
But I
might be
like how you
number
said that.
48.
Yes, I like how you said that when you said you said we get in situations and things happen and we don't
Mhm.
even know that that trauma is actually there. And
Right.
I just started thinking about one time I went to California, right? So I never been to Cali before, never been to Cali. Brandon was like, one of my best friends, Brandon was like, "We going to Cali for your birthday." I was like, "Okay, that's what's up. We going to Cali." I'm excited. I've known Brandon forever. Let me tell you something. Forever. I mean, for years, right? So I go to California and I'm working. Brandon had to go take care of some business somewhere or whatever.
Mm.
I'm in a hotel room and all of a sudden my mind was like, wait a minute. He left. He gone. I'm by myself. What if he just leave me? What if he just dip on me and be like,
Wow.
what? Like, I had a total panic attack. I called like 6 people trying to get home. Like, I think I need to go home. I got some money for
Wow.
a ticket. I might need some extra money. You know what I'm saying? Like, where am I at? Where my mindset at? Why did I come out here? What am I
Mm.
thinking? You know, what is it? Like, I really had a total anxiety, a panic attack because I was in a state that I knew nobody in. I was out there with Brandon, but he had went somewhere and I had a panic attack. And I realized somebody else called me, and one of my girlfriends, Miko, was like, Shayna, it's Brandon. I was like, you right. So then I had to go back into myself and say, where did that come from? It came from being put in situations
Mm.
to where you had no choice but to leave or to get out or to be out in the streets. And it was some things that I went through in my childhood with my mom. You
Mm.
know, she'll be going through some situations and she'll be like, Shani, you gotta go.
Mm.
Not knowing where I was going, what I'm gonna do the next day, what I'm and it would totally put me in a panic. And it put females in situations that they shouldn't be in.
Mm.
And so that right there was one of those experiences. So when he took me out to California, he promised unspokenly that he would make sure that I would get back safely and that we would have a good time. It was me that forgot about the promise.
Mm. Yeah, we do that sometimes. We forget about it.
So, yeah. So, yeah. So, like you said, we have to make sure that we're ready for that relationship so we won't take those traumas or those traumatic experiences into that next relationship.
So true.
Yes, yes, yes. So, the third one we want to talk about tonight is the shallow promise. Whoop, whoop, the shallow promise. Did anybody know that this existed? Did you know this existed? Exactly what it looks like. It's the shallow. Let's just cover up promise. What does it mean to be shallow? Can you elaborate on what it means to be shallow, Coach Ross?
It's not even deep. It's the surface. It's just that's it. You think you about to go swimming and you step in that water and your toes just wet. That's it. That's what that is.
That
You
was
just
definitely
teased
a
me.
great way to explain it.
You
Like,
teased me. That's what you did.
oh my God. When you think about a shallow promise, it's like, why even make a promise at all? Just don't say nothing,
Mhm.
right? Why make
Right.
a shallow promise? If you trying to fool? It was just it's just to ease their comfort, to let them, oh yeah, to appease them, like, yeah, that's what it is. And it's not.
Mm-hmm.
I was talking on the phone to one of my girlfriends today, and we read a post on Facebook, and it said something like, "When's the last time that you lied to a man?" And this guy was like, watch these women say that they did never lied to a man before. So my girlfriend goes sit up here and say, Shayna, you really trying to think about the last lie because you be telling the truth.
I'm out in that boat.
I had to really say, I'm like, oh my God. Now, have I ever lied to a man before? Yes, I have lied to a man before. But how long ago that was? It was a long time ago. So I'm not gonna sit up here and say I've never lied to a guy, but I really had to go back in my mind and think about the last lie that I told a guy. Because I've gotten to this area where I rather tell the truth. Truth talks.
I mean,
Truth
I
talks.
wouldn't call it a lie. I would call it a fairy tale promise. I just left out the small print. Like, you know.
It was between the lies. It was between the
Right.
statements, the words that were said.
Right.
Oh
Right.
no, I got it. I got it. I got it. Because I used to be bad at this. I didn't tell the lie. It's just
Mhm.
that I didn't say nothing at all. It's just
Right.
I knew what the truth was, and I'd rather just not bring it up because I didn't want to get caught in the lie. So I just rather just go around the lie. That's how I kept myself out of trouble.
That's a good one.
So a shallow promise. Like
Mhm.
my thing is with this is that shallow promises hurt. They hurt
Right.
people. The people who make shallow promises, they don't have a care in the world for the person that they made that promise to.
Ooh, yes.
And so it's like, why even make the promise? And then at the same time, think about how what goes around come around. And what if that person made a shallow promise to you, and how would you feel about that promise being made? So we need to think about the type of promises that we give people, the type of
Hmm.
promises that we speak, and the ones that's unspoken. We have
That's
to
true.
learn how to walk in with people who are like us. And if we don't like the people that we're hanging around, then it's
Mhm.
something within us that we need to change in order to make better decisions about who we are around
Right.
and ourselves, because it starts with self first. It starts with
Definitely.
self first. It starts with self first. So those are the three promises that we want to talk about tonight, or we talked about tonight, was a different type of promises. And so I'm going to ask you, the audience out there, when one, when's the last time you made a verbal promise or unspoken promise or a shallow promise, and how did it turn out? Two, is that spouse or that relationship that you're in, is it the promise that you were looking for?
Mm.
Mm. Or better yet, is that the promise that you deserved to have? So again, audience, I just want to ask that question, like, where are you when it comes to promises? So do you have any ending words or lasting words, last words, Coach Rod, in regards to promises?
Definitely, if you're going to make a promise, uphold to it. Um, because breaking them could, like I said earlier, it can lead to a long time of issues, especially when it comes to children. When you make them promises, I think more so children. I'm more concerned about making a promise to a child than an adult, honestly. Because as I said, my daughter can remember something from 2 weeks ago, tell you exactly where you was at, what you said exactly verbatim, and you be like, oh, okay. They are going to remember. And not just then, when they get older, you'll sit there and be like, oh, I remember 30 years ago when so and so, and you said what you doing so and so and so. You be like, wow. So if you're going to try to make that promise, or if you're not try, but if you're making that promise, do your best to uphold to the promise, or don't do the fairy tale promise. Let people know what those hidden agendas, not even a hidden agenda. Let the small fine print, it could simply be like, listen, I'm telling you this, but don't hold me accountable if I can't make it happen. Because let's just say I say, When you turn 18, I'll buy you your dream car. Let's say financially, when you're 18, I don't have the job to purchase that dream car. So let them know that the stipulation, so we might have to have an alternative. That promise might have to be tweaked just a little bit, but let it be known. So all that fine print, let that fine print be known. So it's like, okay, I'm getting this brand new car when I turn 18. And then when that time comes, you like, I didn't ask for this Honda. I wanted the Bentley. Yeah, but my money said Honda. you know?
Right.
So yeah,
Right.
definitely if you're doing those type of promises, make sure that fine print is talked about, brought to the forefront, and you're upholding to whatever it is that you're stating that you can do.
Yes, I like that. I definitely like that. Well, my last words with promises is make sure that you are walking in promise. And what I mean by that is that promise is not always verbal and it's not, as you said, as we saw, it's unspoken. Some might be shallow, but at the same time, being the action for the promise. Make sure that you are exactly what that promise is.
Mm-hmm.
And that builds up trustworthiness, that builds up character, it builds up all these things that's great within about you. And please believe that when you make false promises, people actually judge you from that false promise. So we need
Mm-hmm.
to start thinking about that. Anytime we come into relationship with people, anytime we take a contract, sign a contract, a verbal agreement, make a statement, these are promises. And if you feel like that you cannot uphold to that promise, then don't make the promise. Another promise that we didn't even talk about, and I'm gonna tap on it 2 seconds, is over promising. We can have the best intentions for something, right? And we got so much on our plate already, but because we want to make this person happy or we want to do this over here, we overly promise. I'm going to these mothers out here, moms. We over promise because we have so much on our plate already. We need to start taking things off our plate
Mm-hmm.
so we can know we can hold those commitments with the promises that we already have.
Right.
So that is what I have to say about promises. Make sure that you are connected to the promise. Don't abandon the promise. Think about the promise. And also reflect on the type of promise I'm giving, who I'm giving it to, and who I'm allowing myself to make that promise with. The Bible says, "How can two walk together unless they agree?" If that person isn't the best representation of myself or a self reflection of who I am, I probably shouldn't walk with them. That's in friendship, that's in relationships, and different things like that. Like, why would I want to walk with somebody that always let me down, let go, or give
Mm-hmm.
me false hope? It doesn't give me anything to hold on to become tangible, to make it to something else.
Mm-hmm. That's why you have to look at how they say credit worthiness. What's your promise worthiness?
Mm.
What's your promise credit score? Do you need a cosigner? Can I approve you for this promise to believe that it will come forth? Or will I have to say you were denied?
Can somebody refer you for the promise?
Right. What
Wow.
is your promise credit score? Like what's your score with your promises?
What is your score with your promises?
Mm-hmm.
So that is definitely some food for thought. That's something that we
Mm-hmm.
should self-reflect on. What is your score with your promises? Whether it comes to your children, anything. Make sure that you reach out to us. Comment below, even if you're watching this video later and it was just recorded. Comment below. Let us know what your promises are. Let us know about broken promises or a different type of promises that you dealt with. And also, we want to hear from you. We want to hear from our audience. What would you like for us to talk about on Truth Talks? Again, what is our mission statement? What is our mission, Coach Roy?
Well, our mission, let me pull it up for you one more time. All right. So once again, the mission for True Talks is an open dialogue of real life situations, helping you to overcome obstacles that come to leave you feeling stuck, hinder your growth. This is an open forum free of judgment and bias. We are here to promote healing and growth in order for you to move forward into your destiny.
So I'm pretty sure with what we talked about today when it comes to promises, that this is something that you can reflect upon yourself. You can add some great things that we talked about here to your life, or even think about what was said in order to get to your destiny. Because what we don't want to do is we don't want to stray off the path of what God has for us by breaking promises or going on paths that are promises for other people because we don't have the self promise of knowing who self is with the promise.
Right. So
Dig
true.
that. Dig that.
So
So
true.
again, so glad to have you here today. So glad that you were here today. Again, don't forget to reach down in the comments below. Make some comments about promises. Let us know what you want to talk about, what you want us to talk about next time. And think about those promises you make, spoken, unspoken, and shallow. We might as well not even make a shallow promise.
Right. Please don't.
All right. So again, this is True Talks. We'll talk to you next month. Remember, join us every second Tuesday of the month at 8:30 Eastern Standard Time. Talk
Yeah.
to you later. This is Shayna, which is the family life coach, and this is
Coach Ra, your empowerment and life purpose coach.
talk to y'all. Thanks. Bye
Thanks for
bye.
joining us.